What's going on, everybody? It's your boy, Darth Goons. If you don't know, I have a main channel, Jobbers and Goons, and I've always been huge into Star Wars. I failed you guys on being consistent on this channel. I'm going to try to at least upload multiple times a week to Darth Goons. At the very least, I'll put some of my older Star Wars content on here and mix in new stuff. But today we are covering a video. My boy Dicey's, I don't know how to pronounce his Discord name. He sponsored this. It's going to be a three-parter because I feel like to establish how strong Luke Skywalker is in both canon and legends, you need to break it down into three parts. So today we will go up to Rebellion era, or essentially until the end of about episode 6 in the timeline. After that, we'll go up in part 2 up to Dark Empire, and then after that, we will go all the way up till the end of Luke's story, Faded Jedi, him battling Abeloth, all that. So for this part 1, run the likes up. Let's try to hit 100 likes. That would be absolutely amazing, and part 2 is coming soon. So getting into this, I'm excited to scale Luke because I feel like a lot of people have misconceptions around his character, especially early on. He's a lot stronger than people think, and I'm excited to get into this. So if you guys don't know, Luke Skywalker, the son of the Chosen One, Anakin Skywalker, essentially took on the mantle of the Chosen One after his father failed and fell to the dark side. This saw Luke being eventually picked up by Ben Kenobi, former Jedi legend Obi-Wan Kenobi, as he realized they would soon find the son of the Chosen One, and he needed the Chosen One to win this battle. Now, for those that argue he wasn't ever the Chosen One, it was always just Anakin, there's several statements within the lore that puts him as the new Chosen One and having as much potential and power as Anakin, if not more, even stated by Vader himself. Now, this Luke was just a farm boy, but what makes him perhaps the most incredible, as we take this in perspective, is most Jedi are taught as the young. They are taught when they're essentially toddlers and up. Luke wasn't taught until he was well into his late teens. He was a farm boy his whole life. He was tough from the conditions he worked in, but he was nothing special as a Jedi, never once had an inkling of Jedi training. Anakin, for perspective, with how glorious he was in power and how strong he got in his time, he didn't start training until about 10 or 11. Luke was about 18, 19. Like, it's a big difference. So Luke gets discovered by Ben, and he's told, you are the son of the Chosen One, the son of a great Jedi. You have to rise up to help bring down the evil empire. So how did Luke develop in this time? Well, he started out initially training with Ben Kenobi on some of the basics of the Force. Most importantly, Force sense, essentially using the Force to understand the world around you and understand events going on, not within your sight. Precog as well, he was training the blast against blaster bolts while blindfolded already early on. He was taught some of the basics of lightsaber combat. Basics usually incorporate Form 1, as that's Shi-Cho, which is the easiest. Well, not easiest, that's kind of a wrong way to frame it, but that's the first form you start with. However, Ben Kenobi did not have a long time to train him. Instead, Ben had to teach him the basics at first, and then soon they ran into the Empire, and Kenobi sacrificed himself against Vader in order for Luke to escape and become more powerful to eventually bring down the Empire. Now, this is important because you gotta understand how saucy Luke's potential was. Even though he had very little framework to work with Luke, he didn't have much information on how great he would be. He could sense the potential in Luke to the point that he was comfortable leaving him behind to go on and move on to fight the Emperor. With the basics of Jedi life being taught to him, Luke moved on to actually land a deadly blow on the Death Star by guiding a proton missile. Remember, barely has any training, but he can do this. He can use his sensory through the Force, and he also had Kenobi spiritually guiding him now, as Kenobi had transcended to the astral realm as a Jedi and could now visit him as a disembodied ghost. Now, Luke at this point would go on many adventures as a rebel, as he was full-fledged into the rebellion lifestyle at this point. Now, how strong will we put him moving into the movie 5 era? Well, he did fight other agents of the Sith. He was able to box with the likes of Celeste, who was at least Jedi Knight tier. On top of this, He trained relentlessly by himself to improve the aspects of the Force he did know, which was telepathy. He could perform force pushes and different other astral slash force attacks. He had pretty good precog already, and he was a natural with the lightsaber. To the point that, despite having not that much training in movie 5, his first fight with Vader was more competitive than people give it credit for. In fact, people don't understand that it's stated that when Luke was dueling Vader for the first time, he was holding his own for a bit. In fact, it was stated he was just too hasty. He didn't have enough experience or depth of knowledge in the Force to really just rush in and battle Vader. That's what made him suffer the loss. He wasn't as experienced and as equipped to handle someone like Vader, and he kind of just wanted to rush in and battle him. But keep in mind, this is a man with very little training, taking on Darth Vader in his prime. That is ridiculous. In this battle, which obviously we see Luke later, and before he's trained, he goes and trains with Yoda too. He has a boot camp with Yoda that wasn't even that long. Well, it allowed him to develop at such a rapid pace that Yoda said, actually, you can probably take on the Emperor. That's great. Getting a blessing like that from Yoda after not that much time training is crazy. This same Luke went on to fight the Darkside Cave, a cave that is so powerful, even Starkiller had the utmost respect for it. And in fact, it's so strong that he had some fear of Yoda because he realized Yoda lives near that cave and doesn't give a shit. That's nasty business. So even Starkiller respected that. Luke defeated the cave, was able to defeat his inner demons and the dark side projections within it. And of course, in movie 6, we get the battle or the rematch with Vader, but let's talk about some of the stuff that built up to that. At this point, he can do things like astral project. He can essentially project images of himself or illusions to confuse people. He can completely mind hacks troopers. He's taken on entire patrols of troopers, over 100 troopers at once, turning his lightsaber into essentially a hard light construct, blocking them. He also has much improved telepathic attacks. He can use force push, pull, and item manipulation way better. He is a beast with the lightsaber throw. He was able to take on even other forms of lightsaber combat. For example, the light whip, Lumaya, which he's able to battle her. At one point, he lost the first time because he didn't really know how a light whip works. He returned with a Shoda blade and a lightsaber blade, showing he can essentially adapt any style of lightsaber combat he needs to in the moment. And he defeated her, and she was a reputable agent that even scales to some of the better Sith in history. Now, with Luke building up to this episode 6 battle, he had other crazy feats, such as him surviving an encounter with Boba, but not just that. He was so fast that he got the drop on Boba and disarmed and put him down before Boba could really do anything. This is the same Boba that scales above his father, Jango, who can literally react to Jedi Knight hit teams by himself without weapons and take them out. He couldn't even react to this Luke. At this point, Vader had already said that Luke was essentially the strongest Jedi ever, which is a crazy statement, but is kind of validated in the fight, and we'll get into that in a second. But he stated this would be the greatest possible duel Vader could have. You could rank that to say that also includes fighting someone like the Emperor, but I digress. But he straight up said, we have to convert Luke, or one of us is dying when we battle, because Luke has that much potential in the Force. He can't just be left unchecked, or else he would run down on the Empire. So this is when we get the build up to Luke fighting Vader. When I talk about misconceptions, this is one of the big ones. There's countless statements in novels, accompanying works like Insiders and other detail-oriented guidebooks. The movie script itself, Luke more than held his own against Vader. This wasn't some Vader holding back to try to win. Vader had accepted he probably has to kill Luke. Luke would, in my opinion, have more reasons to hold back, as he understood this was Vader was his father, and he wanted to bring him back to the light side. However, in the duel, Vader brings up that he's going to go get Luke's sister, right? And he'll turn her into an agent of the Sith. This is when Luke's like, okay, you're talking too crazy on the gram. I gotta beat your ass. starts putting the pressure on Vader. Lightsaber throws, he's adapted Vader's style. We need to talk about that. His adaptive combative abilities. Sorry, hairball. So Luke has the intrinsic ability to study your style in combat and adapt it as his own. Vader even remarks that despite them really encountering only once in a true sense of a duel, Luke had studied his style and adapted it to work for him, and he was faster than Vader and just as physically strong as Vader. And so when they were going back and forth, he's matching Vader in blade work, he's even quicker, and he can call upon the dark side to amp himself with rage. He pulled up on Vader, and yes, he beat him. It wasn't some Vader through the fight or some weird argument like that. He straight up bested Vader. Vader realized, oh shit, I'm getting overrun by my son. Vader at that point didn't think Luke could beat him. He thought it'd be the greatest duel possible he could have, but he didn't think he'd actually lose. But at that point, in drawing the rage of Luke and realizing his son could tap into a lot more power than he knew, as well as the adaptive fighting style was that insane, he put hands on Vader and he beat him. And in one of his craziest feats, at least in my opinion for this era, when the Emperor ran down on Luke and started torturing him with all-out force lightning, in the initial blast, Luke naturally was using the ability to stop the lightning. He actually naturally reached out and stopped some of the initial blasts. Of course, he gets overwhelmed because he didn't know how to successfully use this ability, but he naturally and inherently stopped some of the power of this attack from the Emperor, which is crazy to do without any proper training. So where does this put Rebellion era Luke? Going over what he's done, what he's capable of, his force sense, his telepathy, his illusion making, his precog, his force rage, the fact he can call upon the dark side of the force and not be overwhelmed by it, still keep his senses, and his adaptive style from Vader. I think this makes Luke one of the most slept on characters, this version, in Star Wars, because a lot of people think this Luke wasn't that good because he was kind of a rookie and didn't have that long to learn. They think people like Asajj Ventress would just run down on him. Let me ask you guys this. Is Asajj just running down on Vader? You'd probably say no. Give that same respect to Luke, because Luke put the absolute hands on his father. But anyways, guys, let me know what you think of Rebellion era Luke Skywalker and what he's capable of. I think he's really slept on and has better feats than people think, but I'm curious to hear your guys' take. And most importantly, check out my main channel, Jobbers and Goons, and subscribe here to Darth Goons, because I'll be posting a lot more content. Anyway, it's been your boy Darth Goons, and until next time, peace.